Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vance.
We do not have the head of these so-called dicks.
We've got Chris.
What's up, Muffin Fluffers?
I'm Kia. Welcome to the show. Today we are reading a more modern comic, I Hate Fairyland, by a guy named Skottie Young. He wrote and drew this. There's another guy coloring it, Jean-Francois Beaulieu, I think. Yeah, oh boy, we're going to talk about this a lot. Also at the end, we're going to talk about Justice League and Avengers Team Up number 3, the big old DC versus Marvel thing we've been reading one at a time for the last few months. But yeah, we'll get to that at the end of the show. I Hate Fairyland, published by Image Comics, started in 2015. It looks like it was about 20 issues, and then it did end in 2018. I don't know if there's going to be plans to bring it back or whatever, but yeah, I'm really, this is a fun one. Why did we pick this? Vince, I think you're the only one of us who hadn't read this yet.
Yeah, I just so Chris came over to my house. Whenever Chris comes to visit, and thank you so much, he brings a big stack of comics for me, my wife, and for our children. And so I look at my shelf and I'm like, oh, those are really cool looking comics. And this was one of the ones I hadn't read yet, but I love the art and I love Skottie Young. I know Skottie Young from the Marvel Wizard of Oz series from probably about a decade ago now. They don't represent like the movie. He went back to the book and just like drew stuff like that and like Return to Oz. So it's got kind of like the Wheelers, and it's just a really cool art style that doesn't really fit within superhero comics or Marvel comics or standard comics at all. And so I've always looked at this comic being like, I should really get around to reading this. And so that was my impetus. And y'all both said y'all liked this comic, so that's where we're at.
Yeah, and actually I was reading a thing where Skottie Young said he got the idea for this while he was working on Wizard of Oz, where he kind of thought, what if Dorothy was just super annoyed by everyone in this weird world? Yeah, and so that's, kind of the idea behind this. It's kind of, like an Alice in Wonderland type of story. This little girl's trapped in this other world and going through it, except she's stuck there. Well, we'll get into that. Really, should we just dive right in?
Well,
I don't think...
I think the other part of that, though, and Vince probably has some insight into this more than we do anyway, is that he mentioned like being a new father and kind of being annoyed by, kind of having to hear the same story over and over again and like the same sort of kiddie stuff over and over. As an adult, you're just like, come on, man. Like your brain just sort of turns that off at a certain point. Vince, have you gone through that with your children?
Absolutely, but it's kind of crazy because like we watch the new Blue's Clues show like constantly, and I put it on for my kids, and I even enjoy it like to a point. But I'll watch it and I'm like, I've never seen this, even though I've literally been watching like the same episode on repeat since February. I mean, like, that's what Blue was trying to get to. I literally said that this week, despite it being an episode I've watched at least twice a week since February. So I'm very good at tuning it out. I'm surprised by that actual saying, because what it is it seems like Skottie Young it starts in the same place of like an Alice in Wonderland, but then it still establishes the same exact tropes. It just comes to them in a more unique way. And I've always liked stories like that, like Shaun of the Dead. And I know, Kia, you're not a huge fan of Shaun of the Dead. But I love the idea that Shaun of the Dead ends up just following the same like same beats of a zombie movie, despite it like making fun of them. And Scream like takes apart a slasher, but then it's still like going to be a really good slasher at the end of the day. And I feel like this is a pretty good fairy tale. So it's long, though. It's not just this volume, right? There's like several volumes of this.
Yeah, it's four volumes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably like 20-something issues?
Yeah, it's exactly
20 issues.
That's not bad. That's a good...
Yeah, not too bad at all.
And you can tell, we'll get to it at the end, like the story is moving forward. Like it's not just like a monthly, we're back to the status quo.
Yeah,
right?
No status
quo. It's very clearly like this is, volume 2 is completely different from volume 1.
Right, because I was like, how is there going to be more of this? Because like it was getting to a natural ending. I also just like, we've never talked really much about like Image like volume 1s, but Image always puts out like all their volume 1s for like $10, so they're just real good easy purchases, and then they ratchet up the price from there. But
right.
It's a really good way to just people like check out this new series. It's 5 issues, $10. You're like, it's a good deal. I'll do it.
And And I think it's a really smart way to encourage storytelling that can work as a complete story in 5 or 6 issues, because like the way Image works is they're like, we'll give you this one, and if it sells really well, we'll give you more. But if it doesn't, do something else. You know. So there's stuff that is pretty interesting that Image has put out, like Death or Glory and Go Gore and all these different books that like they're good, and I want more of it. And Image is like, I don't know about this.
It's like a TV. It's a TV model.
Yeah, It really is. It does just such a great job of being like, hey, here's a really satisfying season 1, and it's going to get you excited for season 2, which you can already tell is going to be incredibly different. Which is, it's great. Well, we'll get to all that. I'm trying not to spoil stuff too much.
But it's a great point, because Skottie Young is like a great artist, and if people aren't latching onto this story, then like cut and run. Don't force Skottie Young to do this for 4 years. Go put them on something else good.
If no one bought this, they'd be like, okay, let's do something else, obviously, But fortunately, this actually was a hit. This was, I think, I was reading something. It was like the number 35 or 40, like top selling
Are you kidding me?
issue when it came out, the number 1, which is like for an Image book that's not Walking Dead is pretty crazy.
Right. Well, yeah, like a brand new number 1 in a land of all the superhero stuff, for sure.
And it's not like a crime book even, or like how they...
Yeah, like I said, it's not Walking Dead affiliated. It's not part of any existing brand. It's just like, here's a kid's looking book for adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just plays to all of Skottie Young's strengths as well, in just all the best ways. We'll talk about the art, I'm sure, as we go through, but it is like a cartoony, violent mess. But like,
let's get into it. But to that point, like, I think with a book like this, and I think this book does a great job, it has to like immediately establish that that's what it's doing. It can't lure people in with like bright candy colored art, and then like, and a kid accidentally buy it, and then halfway through it turns violent. You can't do that.
No, it's violent to begin with.
You have to establish that in your book, like tonally. Like the cover is like her cutesy with like an axe covered in blood. In the back cover of the trade is like the moon being blown up, and it's like brains and blood splatting everywhere. Like, so it's very clear, I'm not giving this to my child.
Yes.
Let's just start jumping right into it. At the beginning, she's just kind of a little 10-year-old girl with green curly hair and pink everything. The colors in this book just stand out so great.
And she's like missing like teeth and it's normally consistent, like her front left side.
It's like a canine or a molar that's missing.
Yeah.
And she is like just randomly, she's playing with her dolls and all this stuff, and just gets sucked into like this random hole and ends up in Fairyland, where she comes in like crashing down. Like, first scene of her in Fairyland is, falling down, eyes being pulled out of her head.
Ren and Stimpy,
Right, yeah, very Ren and Stimpy. That's a really good actual. It's like Ren and Stimpy, but just somehow more violent but less gross.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's crashing down. She's landed in a bloody heap in the middle of Fairyland with, Queen Claudia, with hair made of clouds. She's pretty great. They tell her, hey, you can get out. You just got to find this key, go on this quest, and you'll be good to go. Here's your guide. It's Larry the Fly. He's got like a what's his fancy name? Laragon Wentworth III, but he's really just Larry the Fly. He's he looks a little run down. He's got kind of like this beat up suit that he wears, but he seems like an okay chap.
Yeah. Again, he's like if you combine Jiminy Cricket with Ren.
Yeah, that's true. I was getting like a SpongeBob art design also, like some like not plankton, but in that kind of area.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, it's basically Alice in Wonderland. It's Wizard of Oz, but she's got like a broken bone and her eyes are all like puffy. And it's like, it's not if a real person, because this is obviously not real, but like if a real person fell into this world and suddenly got like the crap beaten out of them by Alice in Wonderland world. It's not whimsical, it's not fun, but it's got all those like tropes, and the colors make you think it's that way, and I love it.
It's like when Bugs Bunny beats up Elmer Fudd, except you see the blood and the broken bones.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. Like instead of just having like their head wrapped up in bandages, there's like literally like bones sticking out of her arm where her arm is broken.
And then immediately after that, we fast forward 27 years, where she is still on this quest. She is now a 37-year-old woman in a 10-year-old body, and she has absolutely gone mad. She hates Fairyland, hence the name of the book. Larry, of course, is also very, mad about all this. He just wants to get back to a regular life instead of having to escort this little girl around. She is just the most potty mouthed.
But it's like Good Place. I don't think she's allowed to curse, right?
Exactly. Yeah, she's like fluff that guy, all that kind of stuff. The narrator this whole time has been the Moon, who's kind of following her around, and she's like starting to give him lip. He's like, "Don't talk to me like that," and she blows his brains out with a bazooka. Great times.
I love that. That's
such an amazing moment. This is on like page 5. She kills the Moon like horrifically.
Yeah, starts gunning down stars in the sky who are just falling down.
But also killing the Moon is like killing your like voiceover narration. And I think that's a really like cool, savvy idea.
I love that they do it in every issue.
It becomes a running gag. I mean, one of my friends back in college, he noticed that a lot of movies tend to do voiceover narration at the beginning and then abandon it within their first 5 minutes. Like it was clearly like a studio note to like say like you need to get people in this world voiceover narration, and then it's abandoned, and then it's a 50-50 chance whether or not there will be voiceover narration at the end to just wrap it up. But rarely do films have voiceover narration and carry it throughout the film. And so I was like, oh, well, this is a fun way that Skottie Young did that trope where he killed the voiceover narration and now it won't come back. And then it's a running gag. But I was still like, I like it. I really do.
It definitely reminded me. I mean, it's obviously it doesn't hold up with adult eyes completely, but I loved the Winnie the Pooh stories and cartoon because they would interact with the narrator. And like I think that's such a fun, it's I guess postmodernism to be aware that you're in a story, but in a like fun kids way, and then immediately turning that on its head by killing the Moon and then killing the stars because they're witnesses to the murder.
There's so many panels of the week throughout this whole thing. It's going to be like impossible. The one with the moon being its brain blows out. Yeah. This moment with the star that's fallen down out of the sky into like Queen Claudia's castle and is reaching up like, the blood of my people, and like just falling dead. And it's a moment that really just reminded me how much I love this book right there.
It's so good.
This is very adventure timey also this way, but like
but
much more violent.
Obviously. So Queen Claudia now is just like, sick and tired of Gertrude, being all up, ruining her kingdom. And so the rules say that she is not allowed to hurt Gertrude. She is a guest within Fairyland, so the queen can't hurt her. But she decides to basically hire some people to go kill her instead. And
I love this. I think that this is establishing the exact same tropes that we're used to of like the quote unquote evil queen is the antagonist against our protagonist, except Queen Claudia is good, I guess. But she's still trying to find like elaborate ways to kill our protagonist because our protagonist is evil. It's still doing the exact same story beats. It's just found a different way to get to him, and that's what I find that really cool about this book.
And I instantly went into it being like, okay, that's going to be like a freak of the week kind of thing where she has to overcome somebody different every week. Okay, it's not exactly how it ended up, but it's
it's a video game thingy. Also, like here's everything is going to be like a different boss that she has to defeat every episode. Yeah, freak of the week is a real cool. I wouldn't have come to that, but that would have been a good way to do this book. I'm glad that it didn't, but
I'm really glad it didn't. Yeah, it's an easy trap to fall into, I think. I found myself also thinking about because it fits that season arc, just kind of thinking about how would this work as a show. Like I feel like the right way to do it would be to do one issue, like maybe even one whole season in like an episode, like 5 issues makes one episode. I feel like that's the pacing. The pacing of this book is also just like it's moving so fast.
If they Marvelized this into a show, you would have like 3 episodes where like nothing happens.
Right. Yeah,
and then the first episode is the first issue and maybe the second issue, and then the finale is like a big battle that we'll get to.
Yeah, I think. Well, the Netflix Witcher show, I think, moves at a brisk pace, and at the beginning of every Netflix episode of Witcher, it starts with like a picture of the monster he's going to fight. So like the undercurrent, like a plot is that he's always fighting like a big monster for every episode, but it's still pushing the plot forward, and like that. It could easily,
and The Witcher, it's based on a series of novels. It's kind of the perfect, form for the Monster of a Week thing because it's like that's literally what it is,
Yeah, it's the werewolf episode. It's the whatever episode, yeah. But this book subverts that because she like calls like this huntsman, and I'm like, okay, well, we got a huntsman like Snow White. This is all very familiar territory. I'm on board.
So we've got Gertrude is in Vegas now, or whatever their equivalent of Vegas
Las
was.
Fungus.
Las Fungus, thank you. She's in Las Fungus. She's stealing a bunch of money from the casinos.
Oh, and this is where my intro line came from. Is because she called all the cops dickheads.
They were very offended.
Yeah, we do not have the head of these so-called dicks. They've got like guns made of frogs that have laser tongues, which is a cool type of gun. But she gets out of there. No, she doesn't get out of there. They get arrested. She gets arrested and has to go before this big slug, who gives her like this giant riddle if she wants to get out.
And of course, she's really bad at riddles.
Yeah, she hates riddles. Oh my god, she can't fucking stand riddles. Ugh, get him out of there.
I've read this.
I love the design. He reminded me of like Slurms McKenzie.
He does. Yeah.
Whammy wham wham wazzle.
He's got like 90s. He looks like a 90s, rap like bodyguard.
Mm-hmm. He's got a big slug life. I don't know if we said he's a slug, but he's got a slug life tattoo on his stomach.
A big old gold chain with a mushroom on it as well.
Yeah, that turns out to be a mistake.
Yeah, this book ends up being also, it gives me a lot of vibe of you mentioned Futurama, but the other Matt Groening show, Disenchanted, on Netflix.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Like tonally,
there is a fair amount of that.
Yeah, it's like it's a screwed up. It's real. It's postmodern perspective on fairy tales, real people in a fairy tale. This book does it really good though. I like it.
Skottie Young, call me. It's not too late. We can sue Matt Groening. We can have.
He's got a lot of money. He'll probably settle, right?
Yeah, we'll get a percentage of his Simpsons money, like 0.1%.
Hey, it's enough.
Higher on it.
I'm just asking for 0.1% of your Simpsons money. That's enough.
So yeah, Gertrude asks him to lean in, takes his gold chain, like strangles him with it. Starts ripping the heads off of these mushrooms. It is so gory. She's like eating them. Yeah. She's like, she's got the weird crazy eyes, and she busts out of there. She is seeing her. Larry the Fly just like looks like a giant monster to her because she's so damn high.
Tripping, yeah.
She ends up in some ice cream place. And just kind of hanging out. She's puking everything up and runs into. We're still in the first issue. We're running. But yeah, basically they're hanging out there talking about stuff until this barbarian guy shows up and says, "Time to kill you." With the moon in the background, looking like a crescent moon now because it's had a hole blown out of its head and it's all bandaged up. That's a great little touch.
Yeah. Larry has a line later where he's like, "Yeah, they're probably going to be mad at you about the tides because you destroyed the moon."
I think he also mentions like that the werewolves are going to be all screwed up, depending on when.
Yeah.
So issue 2 starts with another little narrator. This one's a tiny little mouse who is, just standing on top of a storybook and reading it before he gets crushed by Gertrude's beer stein. She's at a bar and she is drunk as hell. She is, slurring all over everything. We've got there's like a frog prince that she's hitting on.
You skipped the cliffhanger was the hunter, and the second page is the hunter's head has already been cut off. We skipped the entire fight. You would assume in any other book that this hunter would have been the focus of the next issue.
I would have. That's what I thought.
And they blasted right past it. Like, fuck this. I
mean, this book does such a good job of giving you plenty of violence. It never feels like you're cheated on the violence because it just says, yeah, you can fill in the blanks here. You know what happened. He got his head cut off. We're just going to keep giving you different kinds of violence. Don't worry about it.
That's a really cool. I'm like, most books don't do this. I like that. I'm really quite pleased with this.
Yeah, it's very, and again, to use a highfalutin term, it's very postmodern that it constantly is aware of audience expectations for what a second issue looks like. It's like, no, what if we, completely changed it in a direction you weren't expecting? So yes, she is drunk. She is like talking to the head, and then I like the dialogue box balloon choice of her like mimicking the head talking back to her. That was a funny moment.
She also is apparently drinking wish ale because when she wishes, she was a normal-looking person. It takes into account all of the sugar that she's been consuming in Fairyland and turns it into this giant diabetic mess.
R.I.P. Wilford Brimley. He passed away this past weekend with the diabetes.
Oh, I did not. Oh, that guy. Oh, no.
Yeah, R.I.P.
That's very sad. R.I.P. for sure. We don't see how she recovers from it. I guess.
To me, this was like the most like upsetting page to look at. Like it was just, ugh, I don't like it.
It was upsetting to look at. This was the most Garbage Pail Kids looking.
Yes. Oh,
can you imagine though? Like I don't know Skottie Young's process, but I just feel like him like just sitting giddily at home, being like, and then I'm gonna do this. And then I can do this. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like this whole issue. I'm like, and then I'm gonna have the cops with frog laser guns. Like, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, it seems like a real like just throwing everything at the wall.
It's a world that is ripe for this. It's just like you can do anything in this world, and it's perfect. Queen Claudia gets informed that her barbarian dude got murdered, and so she contacts this witch. And this witch is now going to go kill Gertrude. So she does so by going to some satyrs in the wood. Is that what they are? They're like those
fawns.
Fawns. Oh yes, because we get a great joke. And she turns them into zombies. It's later. Yeah, I don't remember when exactly the joke comes in, but Fawn of the Dead. It's a funnier joke than anything in that movie.
I don't agree with that, but it is funny. If I could rules lawyer for a second, how does she know these cultural references?
I was thinking about this. Like, how did she get to know so much about like sex and cursing and all this kind of stuff if she's been in Fairyland since she was 10 years old?
But how old is she?
That's
10-year-olds. Some 10-year-olds can be, I guess, know about the world. I don't know who her dad or mom was to make her watch Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. I definitely would not have had a complete understanding of how sex worked if I had been trapped as a 10-year-old in a place without sex.
She made some other pop culture reference, I think, in the first issue that I was like, it was just about her choking the slug like Jabba the Hutt. So I guess, and before she was 10, she saw Star Wars and Shaun of the Dead.
I mean, look, she did grow up to be like have a natural violent reaction to this world, so maybe just bad parenting,
Yeah.
Really didn't have Disney Plus at home.
He psychoanalyzed it. The problem is her. She's the one that is. It's not like this is deep. It's the theme of the story.
Mm-hmm. So they're on a hunt for this key still. They're trying to make their way around. She's like constantly misunderstanding riddles and just murdering stuff to try and get past it.
Slay the troll and the tickle troll and hunt the heart.
Yeah, but she was supposed to pay a fickle toll and something like that.
These aren't even tickle trolls; they're giggle giants. And she's just like, just murder like a 2-page spread with just like holes through their chests.
Yeah, I love this. And I talked on Your Stupid Minds recently. We did the movie Serenity, which, spoiler alert, is all based in like a video game simulation. And we talked a little bit about how playing video games badly. And like, this is completely that, where it's just like, no, that's not what you were supposed to do. It's completely wrong. You're just killing things and not listening.
You're using the wrong build to get through this, That's basically what she's doing.
Right, where you're just like, yeah, but I want to be stronger and kill more things. I don't really care what.
This is pretty par for the course for how I as a 10-year-old played video games, and my son as a 6-year-old played video games. We've been playing Yoshi's Crafted World on Switch with him. And it is, as a person who wants to play a video game with goal directions, it is a nightmare for me. And I need to remember, like, no, I'm playing to have fun with him, and he's going to dick around and eat me and throw me off cliffs. Like, that's fun for him because he's 6, and who gives a shit?
Did you say a video game with gold erections?
No, goal directions.
Goal directions. Got it.
Like new directions, not nude erections.
Not new. Yes. Okay. Got it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, but I'm like, Bruce, I am trying to get this fucking flower, and then he'll just like eat me and throw me off the cliff and like lose all my eggs, and I'm like, God damn it. And then my wife will text me like, Vince, this is fun for him. You're supposed to be playing with him. This is how he wants to play. And I'm just reminding myself like, yeah, this is exactly how a child would play a video game, just fucking around. Yeah. I didn't notice though that this son is like terrified in the background.
Constantly afraid after what happened to the moon.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that we talk about that because I just started playing Undertale this past weekend, and I'm taking the pacifist route where you're easiest way to get through the game is to just make friends with everybody. And this is kind of fits that, where she's not doing it the easy way.
It's a Paragon.
But yeah,
it's a Paragon route.
She runs into these zombies, starts axing them up, but they are overwhelming her as we get our to be continued panel. So I'm assuming next issue is going to be all her dealing with these zombies, right? Right?
Sure.
The moon looks happy though that she's about to get eaten by all the zombies.
The moon is very pleased. Is the moon in every issue?
I did not even look at the sun and the moon until I'm doing this now. It's like a running gag. Holy shit.
I mean, there's just so much like artistic detail throughout these books. You could read these a bunch of times and find something new each time. There's there's a lot. At the beginning of the next issue, the moon is upset because she is victorious over all these zombies. We started with our narrator, who's just like a guy with a lantern running through the streets, and Gertrude mistakes him for a zombie and axes him. That's how our narrator for this issue dies.
Innocent old man.
Yep. It just it never gives us too much of this action sequence. We saw her killing enough of these zombies last time. We start with enough of action of her axing somebody else in the head. Let's move on to a dragon. We don't need more zombies. Give me something different.
It's literally just after the first page of her killing the narrator again, the next page is just a 2-page splash of all the dead fawns, and that's over.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the moon again. I didn't even notice on first viewing. You can see the moon growling in the background of the image.
We get the Council of Elders meeting. Queen Claudia has gathered everyone together to discuss Gertrude because, there's this prophecy of this one girl who's going to find the key and then it'll be over. She's like, hey, this is not okay. She's killing all of us. We hate her. Can we all agree to just bring in a new girl? And once she gets the key, Gertrude will become a permanent resident and we don't have to... and then I can kill her. Great. So that's the plan. It was also just a fun kind of... it reminded me of when we were reading Sandman, that scene with all the gods just kind of hanging out, and there's all sorts of wild different gods there. It's the same here, just a bunch of wild different monsters hanging out.
Yeah, I appreciated the one guy who's a clock. I was like, oh, like the Phantom Toll Booth. It's just it's so stupid that you're like, oh, I know exactly who this is a reference to.
What made Gertrude pass out? She spends a long time passed out in this issue here.
She fell off a bridge.
Yes, yeah, and she just doesn't want to get back up.
She killed the polka corn.
That's right. That's also a great panel of him standing there shooting arrows with his broken horn, and her off panel saying, "It'll grow back, right?" It's a great way to introduce this enemy. She falls down, and she's just out for about a week. Maybe longer. We just get this little montage of her, basically lying there dead for who knows how long, growing out a big green beard, while Larry the Fly builds himself a little house.
Through winter.
Ends up, through the winter. Oh, yeah. First, he just has a little leaf covering himself, but then he's like, okay, let me build something more permanent. Builds a house.
Does he meet a girl?
He meets a girl. Yeah, they get a wife and kids. Yeah, they have kids.
Again, he's a fly, so this is all happening very fast.
Very
fast. Divorced, and then he burns
They get
his house
divorced. Yeah. We see her walking away with her bags. He's burning the house down, shooting guns in the air with a bottle of liquor in his hand. It's just a fun little scene. And
you don't
she
need
wakes
to do
up.
this. You don't need to do this for your story, man. You could just show the passage of time. You don't have to draw this whole extra gag. But while you're here, why not?
Why not?
It's a very animation joke of her beard slowly growing. And it's also, I'm not that I would ever accuse Skottie Young of this, but the panel location and everything is digital art. You can literally just be okay, I'll just take the last image and make changes. I don't have to completely draw things.
Right. I mean, yeah, because that burns through basically 6-page count. But at the same time, I do appreciate it because I didn't even the first time I read this, all I looked at was the Gert and the beard gag. I didn't even look at his background gag of him getting married and burning his house down. That's it's unnecessary. You could just have shown 3 panels of the seasons changing and then called it a day. But I appreciate it so much.
Yep. So she wakes up to run into this new girl that they've brought into Fairyland called Happy. She has her own guide, who's a butterfly named Miss Lady, and she is just the most like bright-eyed, just like giant, like skipping around, just a like little bundle of cheer, like super saccharine. She has been in Fairyland for 1 day and has gotten already as far as Gertrude has, because she is again taking the pacifist's path, and she is making friends with everybody who's helping her out. But she's so happy to be there and like getting to experience all this stuff. And like, boy, could you imagine any better place to be in the world than Fairyland? Which really pisses Gertrude off. And also decides that she is going to axe this little girl up, who retaliates with a rainbow laser, because she's made friends and gotten this power of rainbow lasers that just completely knocks Gertrude like through these trees, and she's off on her merry way. Larry and Miss Lady have a quick little what would you call that? A little run-in where they've had a history together. They know each other from the past. Yeah.
Yes, and she mentions that he looks terrible. Yes, and Happy has Care Bear stare powers, blasting Gertrude with a rainbow. And the issue hook is that Larry sees her and like she is just completely like her eyeballs out of its socket. Her one leg is detached. Like she is very clearly
stabbed with sticks and stones. Yeah, dead as can be. Intestines hanging out everywhere. I think this panel is probably the most violent panel. Not violent, but grotesque of all of them. And that's why it might be my panel of the week, I think.
Yeah, and I love the cover to issue 4 where it's Claudia holding Gertrude's like skeleton up. Mm-hmm. Like, which obviously doesn't happen in the book, but it does. Like, if you just read issue 3 and you're like, oh, what? Like, is Gertrude really dead? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, what is this? How is she dead?
Right, because this book is really playing with your expectations. The expectation is like, oh, okay, well, this girl Happy is going to solve the riddle, and then Gertrude will be stuck in the city, and now she won't be immortal. Like, that's where this book is going, right? Like, that's, where I'm anticipating. And then she's killed, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know where this is going.
But she's not, like, I kind of expected some sort of a, like, revival scene next time. No, she's just, like, up and walking around now, but with her eyeball hanging out and with her limbs all broken, hanging on by the skin.
Well, and Larry does kill the narrator for this issue because she's dead at this point.
Yes, yeah, Larry... is like the narrator is talking about how Larry would also benefit from her demise because he would be gone as well, and Larry doesn't want to have any of that, so he just he kills him. It's like a slug with these like real just dumb looking eyes. I don't know what else to call them. So he also like sprays some stuff on her that revives her, like fairy dust. What is Larry like? He's got powers? I feel like there's more to Larry than we know at this point. But he's mostly looking okay. He's like, she says, "Hey, do we still have that like mirror thing?" It's like a transport gate, and so she goes to this mirror world. Queen Claudia is getting her hair done, looking in the mirror, and Gertrude sucks her into the mirror world so that they can have like a talk. And she's like, "Hey, who's this girl?" And Queen Claudia gives her no answers and says, "I hope you die."
She explains what we found out last issue, which is basically that she's going to trap her there so she can kill her once she's not a guest anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically gives Gert the plot that the audience already knows.
Right. And like recaps the audience as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Larry says, well, what if, we want to beat Happy, right? What if we get one of the 7 evil dooms? So they go do that. And we get a really nice, like, 2 scenes in a row, kind of juxtaposing Happy's journey and Gertrude's journey. Happy's journey is all about, like, okay, go talk to this person who will give you this thing, and then you can give it to this person who will open this path and give you this riddle to go get over here and keep progressing. And Gertrude's path is just like, okay, we have to outrun these things and get through this mess and avoid all these guys and murder these things and just try to survive. Gertrude reaches the realm of skulls. With what's this guy's name? Deathface, something like that.
Skullkill the Breadbringer?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's just the guy at the front who she like murders to get in. The guy made
this
skull.
2-page spread though of like the skull like island. It's like built up on stone, like all these skull islands, and then there's a castle on top of a skull. It's really cool.
Yeah, and the dude inside is sitting on a throne of skulls, and his body is a giant skull, and he's got skull arm pads and stuff, and they're like, dude, I think you're overdoing it with the skulls. But
It's very much like Enter the Gungeon, where everything is a gun in that game. But
yes, it's just like that. This guy's name is Lord Darketh Dead Death. That's his name. It's a good name. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll give you my power as long as you get through my evil dungeon. So her the end of this episode is her in this dungeon encountering some great big monster. Cool design on this monster too. It's like got a tongue that's made of a happy face, which
like a little clown, on the end of the tongue. That's a very good gag.
Yeah, like a 1930s boyfriend for Betty Boop looking guy.
So I guess next issue is probably going to be Gertrude getting through this whole evil dungeon, right? Well, issue number 5 opens with the narrator this time talking about who's the narrator? I believe it's the son. The son is the narrator who's instead following Happy and Happy's path of like all these places that she's going, and hey, she gets to the key and she's finding the key. And it's Kitty Balls-tastic. I wrote that down. Kitty Balls-tastic.
That's what she says triumphantly.
It made me think of amazeballs. I feel like amazeballs is a word that we lost in 2020. Nothing is amazeballs anymore.
We've lost a lot in 2020, but
lost a lot in 2020.
But amazeballs at the top of the list.
I lament the loss of amazeballs more.
I think when Tumblr shut down, you weren't allowed to say amazeballs anymore.
Oh, did Tumblr shut down? I wasn't even aware.
Well, I don't know if it shut down, but there's a big exodus when they took
they took the porn off of Tumblr. So then, what's the point?
Wait, there was porn on Tumblr?
Apparently, a lot of it.
I missed out. Missed it all.
You were not using Tumblr, right? I guess.
You're too old to say amazeball. Sorry.
Oh, geez, that too. Oh, dang it. Okay. So Happy has this key. She's in the middle of the town. She's about to unlock the door. The queen is like trying to hurry her along while Happy's like, goodbye, I'll miss you all. Like trying
she's taking a moment to hug all her friends.
Yeah.
She's like, come on.
Yeah. And the son is doing the narration is like, oh, wait a minute. Now there's something else going on here. I hear something. And Queen Claudia is like, just fucking keep narrating, son. And Gertrude rides in on a giant evil dragon and blasts the sun to smithereens with a ray of fire. She has this ultimate power, green glowing from her eyes. And she does give a quick recap of her time in the dungeon. Again, just a quick little montage of some of the monsters that she killed. Darketh Dead Death is very proud of her. She's like the daughter he never had. And he says, definitely, go use my power. Go make me proud out there. And so we get a quick little fight between them. Happy sends out a very Lisa Frank collection of powered rainbow unicorn everything at her, who Gertrude just gobbles it right up, opens the ground underneath her, swallows her right up. Gertrude has the key. She opens the door. There's this big ray of light coming out.
I love the design of this super powered up Gertrude, where she's got green energy eyes.
Yeah.
Like it looks so cool. Like it reminds me of like Maleficent or something like that. Where it's just like you could, or like in Thor Ragnarok where he's like all electricity-y.
Right.
Where you're like, damn, like this guy looks he means business now.
Mm-hmm. It's so great. And then when she opens the door and that blinding white light, it's just like, oh, it's the end. She's got tears in her eyes. I'm going home. Queen Claudia shows up to say like, glad you're leaving. Sad you didn't die on your way out. And Gertrude, with her power, decides to kill the queen. And Larry's just like, no, why'd you do that? Because whoever kills the queen will become the queen. So now Gertrude is in charge of Fairyland and can no longer leave, and she is stuck there.
And you see the key like melt away because now her way out is gone.
Yeah, and then smash cuts to her on a throne saying, "The queen of fluffing Fairyland," and then it ends. I'm like, oh shit. Yep. Okay, well that's a great way to end a volume 1. Like I'm like, I was not expecting that twist, and I want to read more. Good job, Skottie.
I'd read this before, and I'd forgotten about that twist until I started to get into it, and I was like, oh, yeah. It's a great way to just set up the next season, so to speak, or, even what might end up being a more permanent premise for the series, depending on how long it goes.
Because I love storytelling that presents you with an option that makes sense and then somehow steals that from you. Like the one I always go back to is the end of Game of Thrones season 1, where right before spoiler, it's a 10-year-old show and it's a 25-year-old book, but they're like, Ned, he's up for execution. Like, well, he's the hero, he's not gonna die, he's the main character. And they go, Ned, what you're gonna do is we've made a deal for you. You're gonna go to the wall and be with your son. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's what book 2 is gonna definitely be. And then they kill him, and you're like, okay. Oh. Well, now I don't know where this book is going. And I feel like this did that exact same, like, well, obviously she's going to get out. I don't know how they're going to have 3 more volumes, but, either Happy's going to, like, do it, and then Happy doesn't do it. And I'm like, okay, well, now I don't know where this is going. She's going to get out, obviously. And, like, now I don't know. And she's going to be the queen. And I'm like, I just love the rug being pulled out and the way it just ends so quickly. And then it's just, like, out. Like, it's a really good trade for that. It, like...
Yeah, it's really perfect storytelling. Again, the pacing of this whole thing, just really, really delightful through and through. I also, just wanted to mention real quick, I like that pretty much most of the issues have some backup art where you've got different guest artists just doing cool single, like, page spreads of just cool, cartoony, grotesque stuff, just kind of whatever they want.
Is that what, like, how Invincible, because it's not in the trade, but I guess it's probably in the original issues, is that how, like Invincible would always have just different artists do stuff in the background?
Pretty much, yeah.
In the backup, that's really cool.
Yeah, just, like, fun little, again, no, like, stories or anything, but just, like, what are they called?
Pinups?
Well, yeah, there we go. Pinups. Yeah, I love this. I never actually finished this series. I think I read the first 2 volumes and then just for whatever reason never remembered to keep going back to it. But I think at this point I'm going to have to, especially because it's kind of done essentially.
Yeah, it only ended in 2018, I think. I mean, it hasn't been that long.
So I'm not sure if maybe I wonder if Skottie Young's planning on ever doing more. Like, plans for everything are kind of up in the air right now for everyone. But I would hope that he eventually comes back to it. But again, maybe 20
he can
issues
dictate his
in
own
the
pace,
story.
though. He's the writer and the
Exactly.
artist. So
right, he can just do it whenever he wants. And again, I think this book would make like a great TV show, but like it would kind of hinge on the pacing. It depends on what you do. I almost feel like these first 5 issues would be condensed into like 1 hour, no more. Give me 1 hour, or maybe just like a quick movie.
It would be a good, quick, like Netflix original movie, like 4 volumes or something. But also, like, it gives me the vibes. Key, I don't think you've watched the Harley Quinn TV series.
No, I have not.
Which is like Venture Brothers, but inside the DC universe, and it is fantastic. And it gives me the same kind of vibes. Like the Harley character is very hyper violent, but then like treats certain things like super, like true, and doesn't treat them as a joke. It's a fantastic show. I think you'd probably like the Harley Quinn show if you like this.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, it does have a little bit more like actual story to it, but yeah, it does have like ultra violence for no reason because it's like, well, that's what we do. It's also genuinely funny, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
This book is so weird for me because I don't actually like any of the characters, and I'm not usually a person who likes art or gags inside of art. And this works for me. I think I liked Skottie Young's art from the Wizard of Oz books I had read. But man, like I don't understand because I don't care about Gert. I don't really want her to succeed.
That's interesting. Yeah,
I'm not pulling for her. I'm not pulling for Queen Claudia though either. But I am pulling for like let's see different weird things. It's a very weird book that like on paper shouldn't work for me. It's weird. I like it though.
Yeah, you're just like rooting for just the creativity of this world and like wanting to see more of it. Like there's nothing else to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very it's more anti-hero. It's if you don't like Breaking Bad, it's more mafia stuff where it's like they're all horrible. Like,
but you liked Tony Soprano. You liked Tony Soprano enough. You kind of wanted him to skirt the law.
Right. I mean more. The like Goodfellas and Casino and stuff like that. Like where it's just an anti-hero making the wrong choice over and over.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good. It's really good. Thank you, Chris. This was a great recommendation. I'm really pleased with this one.
Yeah, I'm glad to have reread this and excited to keep going with it. It's super
see
fun.
If my libraries has it. It might be too mature for the library.
It is on Hoopla, so if you've got that service,
Hell
all right then. Great. I think are we ready to move on to Jla Avengers? Anything else to say about Skottie Young?
It's good.
It is good. It is very good. Cool. So let's move on to Jla Avengers number 3. What an action-packed cover! Everyone's on this thing, smaller than ever to fit everyone in. And this book started kind of weird. I found this book honestly a little bit more difficult to follow than some of the others because we do start with Green Arrow hanging out with the DC folks in the Marvel universe, and Green Arrow's having like some weird, like he's not quite sure what's going on dimension-wise, having a little trouble with the continuity, I guess. Same with Captain America. They're each like confused. Like, what? Captain America's at a party with the JLA, and they're like,
it starts off with Hawkeye making out with Black Canary.
Oh yeah,
and you're like, this is weird, but like, I'm happy that like the characters are like all interacting. This reminds me a lot of that Crisis issue after like the world snapped, where like things are automatically like they're off. Like, why? Yeah. How does Hawkeye know Black Canary? Is she like have a thing for Arrow guys, and maybe that's where those universes are like, have they merged? Like, what's going on? And because like from the last issue, like something weird happened with Krona and the Game Master, where I think Krona took everything, and then some weird shit happened. And so we're thrown right in the middle of it.
And Krona's our big bad main villain of this whole thing. Right. I think we can pretty much definitively say at this point.
But that's the prologue, and then like Hawkeye disappears, and people are like, "Why are you talking about Hawkman?" Which is really hard to execute in comics, like that kind of like stuff. Yeah. I mean, sometimes comics is really good for showing things that like don't work. Like later in this issue, they'll be like, "Wonder Woman is wearing a costume from 20 years ago. Like, what's going on? Y'all haven't talked about that." Like, there's like little things like that comics do really, really well. But then the second segment is all the Avengers fighting Brainiac. And even Cap's like, this doesn't seem right. Or it's like a battle after with Brainiac.
Like, the beginning of this book is a lot of classic Busiek, with him saying, hey, remember this? Remember this? Yeah. Hey, remember these other times when our universes crossed over? That was a thing.
But at the same time, like, everything we talked about, like Marvel versus DC, and even the early issues of this, I'm like, I wouldn't use Metron. I would use Brainiac to show, like, clearly, like, this is a villain that doesn't belong in the Marvel universe.
Right. You know? Use someone important. Yeah. Someone recognizable. And it did, like, this issue, number 3, like, I think we ended up, for the most part, really liking the first 2 issues, very different from Marvel versus DC. This one started to feel unfocused. It was a lot of kind of
I'm
random
liking this fighting. A lot.
Well, so I started to like it more by the end. Okay. But, like, the beginning of this issue where everyone's just confused, and we came out of a scene where Captain America's confused, and Green Arrow's confused, it just left me confused.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where are we?
I think that was the point. I see, and I agree. I agree with you, but I liked it, and I like the idea that and when they're right after the Brainiac, you know, they're talking about like Brainiac has been destroyed or something, and they call the Justice League, and the Justice League walks towards them from a portal. So it's like the Avengers and the Justice League have been friends and working together for years. They occupy the same space, obviously not the same universe, but they're aware of each other's universes, and they hang out and they talk and they know each other's names. And I like all that kind of little aspects of it. The fact that it's like wrong and off is a little like, I'm like, that makes it a little messier, but I like the idea of them just knowing each other.
I did. Go ahead, Chris.
And it's very interesting. I mean, I know y'all probably haven't read the like 70s or 60s and 70s Justice League books, but I read those pretty recently because they're all on DC, whatever their streaming service is called, and while it lasts. And they do, like, once a year, like the JSA shows up and like they have an adventure with people from another Earth, and it's like a regular thing that the Justice League always does. It's like whatever, the moons are in sync or whatever it is. And like, so Black Canary is actually from another Earth in this pre-crisis timeline. She's from the Earth where Batman is like, 60 some or 70 years old and eventually dies. Where things are like different because everyone is aging regularly. And then, the main Justice League, interacts with these guys. And so like, it definitely reminded me of that, where they're like, they have like a luau where all the Avengers and Justice Leaguers are like hanging out.
That's my panel of the week.
It's a fun scene. It's a fun scene no matter how you slice it.
George Perez drawing everybody. It's got like Captain America and Black Panther like in little lays. It's got my Iron Man doesn't wear a lei, but he is drinking like a little Mai Tai. And the Beast has got like a Hawaiian shirt, and Hercules, I guess like a Marvel Hercules has a little like Hawaiian shirt and a lei on, and the speedsters are talking.
Yeah, I like Wonder Woman and Wonder Man talking to each other.
Right, and Scarlet Witch and Vision are talking to Red Tornado because Red Tornado adopted kids because he's an android like her husband.
He's like a worse version of Vision. Yes.
Yeah, and then both Hawkeye and Green Arrow are trying to shoot like things out of Plastic Man's mouth. It's all like stupid. And then is it Snapper Carr and Jarvis, and I can't remember who the last one was.
Snapper Carr! Yeah. I remember Snapper Carr. Yeah.
Rick Jones and Snapper Carr were in just Marvel versus DC. They were like next to each other, like counting votes or whatever.
They're a good team up. Yeah.
This is like George Perez. Like this is a fun like gag background where you can just see like everybody just like kind of talking. It's fun, and everybody's in little Hawaiian leis, and I'm like, this is what I want to see out of any superhero comic, let alone this one. Like this. And
I want to go back to what you said, like how Vince, you said like it is the point for us to be confused. I definitely agree. Like we are meant to be like not quite sure what's going on with all this, but you're right. I was along for the ride. It's like all the individual scenes are good, where we're seeing stuff start to like blend together, and you're not supposed to do everything.
I think it's clumsy sometimes, but I appreciate like what they're going for. Like the Green Lantern will alter between being Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner, just like arbitrarily between panels, which is really hard to flip and execute.
Yeah.
But it's cool in principle. I don't think it executes it as well as it could, but I like that.
Yeah, I think my problem going into this issue, which like gave me a tough time, is that it didn't give me any sort of a foundation before it started confusing me. And it didn't connect to the previous issues almost at all. It feels like it almost started a brand new story in a way. Right. Like it doesn't feel like no recap, no anything. It's just like, hey, we're the Justice League. Things are weird.
Yeah, and it is really hard because we read these particular issues every 2 weeks, and they're 48 pages, and a lot happens in them. And Busiek is very dense in his storytelling as it is.
It's very
the like handshake between issues isn't very strong.
But yeah, overall, by the end, so the worlds are kind of, we're seeing it little by little, different mergings happening, different things being seen. The worlds aren't even like merging appropriately. Like one city's, like New York City is merging with Mount Rushmore in the DC universe, and it's like, what's going on? Well, different world densities. It's all combining in a weird way.
I love when they go to Metropolis and it's like all covered in snow or ash. It looks a little like Pacific Rim, where the city's just kind of destroyed in like a white background, and it's just really cool. Like I'm not used to like Perez doing this having like this kind of cool coloring for his art, from what I've seen of like the Infinity Stories or Crisis. But I really love like these particular panels and just the way that looks, and then it's juxtaposed. I think that's the DC universe in Metropolis, and then there's New York in the Marvel universe, which is like on fire. And so it's a good juxtaposition, and characters are jumping in between each universe, like as the scenes go, which is super confusing. But at least visually, you know where you are.
Vince, I'm glad you brought up Pacific Rim. Now we've mentioned the top two movies that I disagree with the public on.
I'm so sorry. The second it came out of my mouth, I'm like, oh yeah, like I've now said movies that Kia does not like. Which to each its own, but that's like what it like reminded me of, and I apologize for that. But
you don't have to apologize.
Do you want me to bring up like, and then this scene reminded me of John Wick 2? Like, do you want me to go like that far? I'm sorry.
Well, I never saw John Wick 2 because I hated the first one so much, so you don't have to bring that one up.
Yeah, I do like the payoff for all this. We have all this, this crazy stuff in Metropolis, crazy stuff in New York. We see Krona's face on opposite ends of like, it's a really cool design where it's like, page to page, where it's like Krona's face is on the left facing out, and then on the other one it's on the right facing out. So it really works better to read it, on a physical copy, because if you're just looking at the page and then you just click a button and then look at the next page, you don't really get the same sense of like, oh, like it's mirroring what's happening.
It's a good thing this book is in constant publication in bookstores.
Yes, exactly.
And not out of print for the last 20 years.
Yeah, you should have bought it when you were a freshman at Trinity, like I did, and then just kept it somewhere. So, but the payoff to all that is a double-page spread that's so cool, and the characters acknowledged makes no sense. where you see just like giant Kirby hands with like the crackle coming off of them, just shoving the Marvel and DC Earths into each other. And Iron Man is like, well, that's impossible.
It's cool though, man. It's really,
it's very
because
cool.
You're like,
It's
why are Superman and Iron Man going into space? Like, what is that going to accomplish for them? And then you see it, because like up until that, there's such cool scenes of like, there's like a cab driver being like, Superman, like nobody knows where I'm from. I'm from Kurak, and people are like, that's not a real country, and I'm like, it is a real country, guys. And so like just like that little like
that's where Jason Todd was killed.
Right,
we read that story.
But oh, good. I did not remember that. But I love that little stuff. Like that's how you introduce the fact that like it's more than the superheroes have accidentally ended up in the wrong universe. Like that's a really cool way for me to introduce that concept. And I think Busiek's pretty good at like real people's interactions with with superheroes.
Although, you know, he did already publish, because I think it was that Astro City, like number 0 or whatever it was, not a game of you, that's the Sandman. But that story where it's like the guy remembering a wife he never had, and then he meets, you know, somebody from their version of the Justice League, and they're like, yeah, there was a, reality changing event. So, yeah, your wife never existed. Do you want the memories back at least?
We get a scene of like the Green Lantern trying to stop whatever big power there is in the sky. It's like Krona's face is up in the sky. Kind of, this whole scene starts to get a little not very concrete in terms of what's happening. It's just like this thing in the sky is dangerous. We are all going to defeat it with power. And we get like everybody's face putting effort in. You can see the effort on their faces, so they're definitely doing something, and we definitely needed everybody for it, and they do it and they succeed.
Are you saying superhero comics don't make sense, Kia? Because I'm sure there's a scientific explanation for how
it's very like a satisfying, like, look, it's everybody in this book and their faces, but it does feel like it could have been more in terms of, hey, everybody has a part to play, instead of everybody is necessary, and it felt a little lazy. That's all. I want to direct your attention real quick to the next page, where there are 2 panels in a row of Captain America's face that look like they are a single face put together, except the eyes are pointing in opposite directions, and they look super crossed, and I absolutely love it. That's double
Shawn
panel.
Michaels, Captain America.
Shawn Michaels. He looks pretty messed up right there. Makes it all worth it. And then they meet some magician. Who is this magician? Is that
Phantom
Zatara?
Stranger? But we vouch for him, even though he's a stranger and a phantom.
Yeah, that seems like 2 good things that I wouldn't trust.
I can't remember if it's Superman or Captain America vouches for him, because I don't know him. I'm gonna guess that Superman vouches for him because he seems more like a DC hero.
He's another one where, like, I've read the issue where he joins the Justice League, and I'm like, why'd you let this guy in? You know nothing about him other than he's a spooky customer.
Was he one of the 7 soldiers of victory, Phantom Stranger? Where have I heard his name before? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
He's like with Dr. Fate, as far as like, Doctor Strange like magic-y guys, where you're like, what's their deal? And then they don't really explain for a long time.
He looks like he's dressed like Zatanna, but without the fishnet.
Yeah, that's why I thought he was Zatara. But no, nothing. There's a cool scene of the Grandmaster. This is my other panel of the week. How many have I had so far? I don't know. But the Grandmaster just kind of like lying there, super wounded in his weird checkerboard, spacey house. God, I love this giant frame here. And he starts showing the heroes just visions of past timelines, past universes, all that kind of stuff, which makes them. I don't remember like what effect it has on them.
Well,
Feels very
Busey. The question is, I mean, it is very Busey. Like, let's talk about history, but it is a very good like. The idea is the heroes are like, we want to go back to the past universes. Like, that's how we want to reset the status quo. And the Game Master's like, do you really want to stay the status quo? Because it's fucked up. And
so we see some of this we've actually covered. We see Jason Todd's death. We see Flash dying in Crisis, because this is the original Flash watching his death. We see the White Martians. Martian Manhunter sees the Martians. We see. Let's see. What else have we actually covered? Death of Superman.
We covered that. We did not cover. I don't think we ever covered Scarlet Witch losing her kids.
No, it's a horrible story. So I don't know. Maybe we'll do it sometime
via Young Young Avengers or something.
Yeah, maybe because it's John Byrne's West Coast Avengers. It's horrible. I really dislike it. It's him resetting continuity he doesn't like in the clumsiest way, which we do see the flash
Byrne,
of.
Huh?
Yeah, John Byrne not liking new changes in characters.
But we've got Tony Stark's alcoholism. Have we ever read those stories?
No, we haven't read Demon in a Bottle. Let me put that on the list.
Yeah. Green Lantern going mad with a million rings. I don't think we've read that. This is a good. We should just read Kurt Busiek stuff for ideas of what other classics to read.
Yeah, we have covered like half of this. I don't know specifically what Wonder Woman thing it's even referencing, where she just sees like other versions of Wonder Woman. I guess it's like an Elseworlds thing, because I was like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, hey, look at this time in my life. Okay, cool.
And Batman, sees Jason Todd and then his back being broken, which I don't think we've done Nightfall because it's like a million parts.
Right, exactly. Is it supposed to be good though? Because I know I'm not gonna read Age of Apocalypse, but I think Nightfall is supposed to be actually like decent to read.
I mean, Age of Apocalypse is also good. Nightfall is okay. There's just a lot going on.
I feel like it'd be like 3 or 4 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think also like Age of Apocalypse, it's kind of like we wouldn't have to read all of it. It's like, how is this team affected by the new status quo? How is this team affected by the new status quo? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, if we did like a few number ones and then the beginning and the ending, that's probably all we would have to read.
Yeah. So the Grandmaster dies. The Justice League and the JLA, that's the same thing. The Justice League and the Avengers shake hands. That'd be a good team up, Justice League and JLA.
Wow.
Could you imagine? But they team up, they raise their hands in the air, and they say, hey, Krona, we're united now, and we're coming for you in the next issue.
Yeah, and we do have a one-line throwaway where Grandmaster's like, yeah, some people who are like really connected to their universes and love it a lot were turned into jerks by going to the other universes, and you're like, oh, okay.
Okay.
So like they show Superman and Captain America who have been jerks.
Written out of character, as we've noticed.
Yeah, I guess that's the end of that chapter. Is Grandmaster's like, yeah, sorry about that. I guess that's been happening.
Well, there you go.
I liked this issue. I liked this issue.
I liked it by the end. It was just put together in a tough way to get into it, but I did like it by the end.
I think it does a really good job of. My problem with most like superhero like major stories, especially with like Marvel's events of the mid 2000s, is it's always like hero versus hero, and it's not all the heroes teaming up together to be awesome together. Because I don't care. I don't want to see like Captain America fighting Iron Man. Like I really don't care. Like I'd rather see everybody team up and be awesome together. And like I want to see Cap and Superman shaking hands and be like, we're friends. Now let's do something together and let's help the world. And Batman showing up too. Like that's what I want to see. And Batman's been given short shrift through this whole book, but whatever. So this is giving me that. There's not really like a core villain until the very end of this issue, and I kind of like.
Well, that's the other thing that I think made me like. Finally be like, okay, I know exactly who the villain is. Before this, the villain had just been kind of like something's bad, and I don't really like.
Is that from like? Is that Always Sunny? Like where Max says like, who versus though? Versus who?
Versus who? Who versus? I mean, yeah, I'm still on board. I've enjoyed this still a ton more than DC versus Marvel. I'm going to be kind of happy to be done with these crossovers for a little while.
Right. We'll have to figure out what our next long read is. We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, something with crossovers.
We'll do Planetary. Yeah, let's just read Planetary for a long time.
It's not that worst idea. You had mentioned Seven Soldiers. I was seriously thinking about that, but I don't know if I want to commit a year to Seven Soldiers.
Well, Seven Soldiers is also tough because it's like, what's the best reading order? It's kind of like Grant Morrison stuff, especially with that. It's like, you got to read it and then like reread it later to find clues.
We'll read Clarion 1, and then we're going to read
another
Clarion the Witch Boy 1, and then we'll read something else, and then 4 episodes later we'll come back to Clarion the Witch Boy 2.
It's such it's one of those long-term comic projects that I've never even managed to get through because it is so dense and difficult. But maybe that's a thing we get into at some point. But I think that's
Actually,
it.
I have an idea, but I'll tell you all off air because it's too good to tell these pros just listening to our podcast. They don't deserve to.
Join us next time, and maybe you'll find out what Chris's big idea was. Wow!
Right, gotta tease it for next episode.
Next issue cover though is awesome for Jla Avengers 4. It's Superman.
I didn't
It's Superman. His like cape is ripped, his costume's ripped, and he's holding Mjolnir and Captain America's shield. Yeah, that's what I came here for. That's what I want.
That's what we came for. Yep. Great.
Yeah, the cover gallery is at the end for me. It's annoying, but yes, that cover rules.
It's a good one. So yeah, I'm excited to finish out this Jla and Avengers. And did we mention what we're actually reading next time for a main read? No. Oh my goodness, let's talk.
The cover for this issue rules too. It's just every character, like literally every Avenger, every Justice Leaguer is on this cover. It's crazy.
It's nuts. I don't know how they fit them all on there. It's crazy. Even like on the spine, they had to fit a couple people. You know.
Yeah, some of these I'm not 100% who some of these are, but most of them I know exactly who they are because I'm a huge nerd.
Mm-hmm. We will we'll ask you to list those off, and we'll put those on the website. So make sure to
even early 90s jacket wearing Invisible Woman is here. They're all here.
I don't think I've ever seen jacket wearing Invisible Woman.
I did see Patsy Walker Hellcat in the actual issue herself too, so I was happy to see her.
Okay. Maybe that's a book we'll read at some point. Who knows?
That one's very good. That's Power Girl.
That's another book that Chris would dropped off at my house, and I'm like, yes, I want this book. This is really good.
Yep, it's another great modern book. But yeah, next time we are going back to the 80s. We just recently had the Eisners going on here. Some stuff won some stuff. I don't know. But we are talking about 1984. During the big convention season, all this sort of stuff going on. The editors of Marvel, they had to be out and about doing other stuff. And so Marvel had an assistant editors month where they put a stamp on each book saying, hey, it's assistant editors month. Don't say we didn't warn you. And so everybody just kind of had a little bit of fun with their books. Either it was a silly backup story or the main plot was a little bit weird. So we're going to read a collection of some of those. They are going to be Marvel Team Up number 137. With Ant-Man and Franklin Richards teaming up to fight the last.
Aunt May.
No. Oh, I'm sorry, Aunt May. I misheard you when you were telling me about it. That's even more pathetic. Aunt May. Jeez. Has there ever been an Aunt May Ant-Man team up? That would be okay.
Wow. Aunt versus Aunt.
Aunt versus Aunt. I should have mentioned. We previously read this, but the kid who collected Spider-Man, a classic Spider-Man story, that took place during Assistant Editors Month.
Not a silly story. Quite a sad story.
Not a silly story at all. Yeah, but it was just kind of a little bit of a different story. We already read that. Not going to read it again. Maybe we'll talk about it. But Marvel Team Up 137, Avengers 239 with a David Letterman Avengers Team Up, Dazzler number 30. Which is where the assistant editors have like a coup of the Marvel offices or something. I don't know. We'll see. The Thing number 7, where the Thing, I think this is a backup story. He reads his own comic, hates it, and storms off to Marvel to complain to them. Defenders number 127, which has a backup story by Ann Nocenti and Maurice Severin. I'm not sure what the main story is going to be. We'll talk about some of these main stories, probably some of the backups, maybe some of the other backups from stuff throughout this month. The Marvel even put out, I guess they would always put out a checklist of what's coming out each month, but there's definitely a checklist for this floating around out there. Some of these are not on Marvel Unlimited, so they might be a little bit tougher to find here. But we're going to do our best to talk about as many of them and just kind of, see what was going on that month. In
silly Marvel comics. It should be fun.
Yeah. And Chris, you mentioned you really like
comics, yeah.
Yeah, this is like your favorite era of Marvel as well?
Yes, we'll talk more about it that episode, but this is probably my all-time favorite era of Marvel. Probably in part because of the Marvel RPG is set during this time, but it's also just a great time for Marvel Comics.
Gotcha. So Chris dropping more teasers. He's going to tell you so much more about the things you love next time. And some other stuff. Boy, I can't wait to hear all of Chris's secrets. We're going to dig deep. We're going to ask. It's going to be a real tell-all next time. So join us for a deep dive into the life and times of Chris. Anything else we got to talk about?
Not for me. I have no plugs.
Chris, you got any plugs?
Your Stupid Minds, check it out. We should have an episode coming out in the next week. I think I may have already spoiled it in our last episode or hinted at it. It's going to be the Goldfinch from 2019 with Ansel Elgort, or however you say that kid's name, Baby Driver.
Yeah, Baby Driver.
And spoiler alert, it's not good. But we'll have fun. We'll talk about literature and adaptations and all those things.
My mom hated the book. I was telling you about that. I was like, "Oh yeah, Chris is going to cover that on Your Stupid Minds." And she goes, "The book was terrible. I cannot imagine how good the movie is." I think she's one of the few people that hates the book.
Well, it has Finn Wolfhard doing a outrageous Russian accent, if that's what you want.
That's the Stranger Things kid, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The main boy.
The main boy.
So this almost turned into an episode where we mentioned nothing but bad movies, but y'all mentioned Baby Driver, and that's a good one. So
hey,
you like something good.
I like something. Great. So join me next time. Maybe we'll hear about something else that I like. Hey, you know what? I Hate Fairyland, despite thinking you might hate it because that's what's in the title. That might be my favorite comic we've covered in at least a long time, but possibly ever on this show. It's one of my all-time favorites. I think
it's really good. It's unlike anything I've read, because we talked about the Eisner Awards being this last weekend, and the Eisner Awards are all really good comics, but they're all like the Oscars of comics, and so they're not a lot of like superhero books. They're a lot of like good books, but they're also like hard for us to cover on this show. But like, I Hate Fairyland isn't in that same like genre. It's just like, it's not superhero comics. It's not like a normal like Image, like gritty, hard-boiled book either. It's weird. It's very weird, and it's very good.
Go check it out.
It was a nice breath of fresh air.
Skottie Young, we demand 0.1% of royalties for every issue purchased, thanks to our discussion here today. Thanks a lot, Skottie.
Say, after we win that lawsuit, Skottie, against Matt Groening, we'll be so rich.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's right. First, we're going to team up with Skottie Young to take on Matt Groening. Then we're going to sue Skottie Young for more royalties.
Chris, are you going to put a big billboard out on the Texas highways that says like how much you sued Matt Groening for, and it'll be like 30 million gained from Matt Groening, 17 million went to the lawyers. Because they have to disclose that.
All right.
I won't do that, Vince. I probably won't do that.
Yeah. Hey, never say never. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Vince, I love you.
I love you too.
Chris, I love you.
I love you.
Oh, God damn it. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.